Steven, was Wildcard weekend super enough for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it was super enough. I didn't think it was going to be super on the Sunday, but it was super enough.
Oh, I'd say it was super all 3 days.
It was
Well,
very
maybe not on
super.
Monday.
Nah, Monday was whatever. You're kind of seeing like I don't know. The talking points that come out on Monday are too much. It's just like, oh, is this the end for talk? Like you said it. You said it on the show
Yeah.
before. It's either going to be, it's either going to be Dallas can't get it done in the playoffs, or it's going to be what's going to happen with Tom Brady. And maybe that's just because we're in the Bay Area, but right now, all through social media, it's just nonstop 49ers, Cowboys, fan rivalry, hatred. So that's what that is right now. It's kind of taking a day off with Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers getting his name into the fold in the offseason.
Yeah, let me just say this. I know we talked about it last year, and I voiced my displeasure with him holding hostage the offseason and his Pancha Karma bullshit and all that.
Oh yeah, Pancho
I'm not
Karma.
having it this year. I am not having him turn into Brett Favre and having everybody wonder, am I coming back? Am I not coming back? I don't care, really. And I'm going to wait until he announces something. But with all this with all the mystery and the suspense and him going on Pat McAfee to announce something, I don't care. And my guess is he signed that contract. He has to fulfill that with the Packers. So under the assumption of the contract, I assume he's coming back to play for the Packers next season.
I would think so. I don't know. Like, I think Gronkowski made a good point. I saw Gronkowski respond to it. Basically said, like, hey,
On
man.
Up and Adam,
Yeah, on Up and Adams. On Up and Adams.
good thing she landed on her feet from leaving Good Morning Football.
What he said was, like, if you're not
You should
thinking
be focused on Super Bowls and not
Yeah.
MVPs. I
Yeah.
agree with him. But I also, if you see the context of what he's talking about, he's just saying I could play MVP caliber football.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get all into it. Just your opinion, man. Stephen Langford, Derek Papa. If I could say one thing, have you haven't been watching the Hard Knocks with the Cardinals?
No, I have not.
Really well done last episode with J.J. Watt retiring, and they did a good send off for him. I wasn't even aware that Levi's did actually a very good send off for J.J. Watt's last game. Very classy by the Niners organization to put something up on the jumbotron.
Yeah.
And everybody wave, to him. They focused on Cliff Kingsbury's firing, and it was interesting just to see a team that is so full of turmoil and controversy and just a shitty season to not really give a shit about what's going on with the outside world. And it was a very good episode in the sense that athletes don't really care about what you and I are doing right now or all the talk shows or everything. And we know that, but it just shows how much they don't really care about what we have to say or what our opinions are.
Wait,
So
what do you mean? How does that like how
they,
does
they
it
were
show
they
that?
were sitting down with Cliff Kingsbury and they asked him about the possibility of him getting fired,
Right.
and he even kind of acknowledged it, saying like, "Yeah, I don't think he exactly said like I expect to be fired, but he knew the writing was on the wall."
Right.
So I don't know, like it just kind of gave. It's hard to explain. It's actually a really well made episode, in my opinion, but it also just shows how the way that these guys live is just like a job like you and I do, and they just do not care about what the outside world thinks of them. Like the Arizona Cardinals had a terrible season. They went 4-13. Their QB was, we don't know about his future next season. He's going to play again, but we don't know about when he's going to come back. And they just don't. They all were happy in the end. Like it was a shitty season, but it ended with them smiling and having a good send off for J.J. Watt and even Cliff Kingsbury. You saw the report from Peter Schrager where he's going to Thailand,
Right.
and enjoying life with his extremely attractive girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And he just doesn't seem fazed by it. Like it's tough. No one wants to lose, but it kind of just reminded me about how, like, Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to say what he wants to say today about, if I come back with, I can still play MVP caliber football, but I don't know if it's with the Packers. And then everybody, has to dissect that comment and whatnot. And the reality is that they just don't care about what we have to say. So my thing is that, yes, we'll dissect everything that Aaron Rodgers has to say and Tom Brady and everything in the offseason. But the reality is, these athletes don't give a shit about what we have to say.
Right. Well, the thing is, like, well, number one with the Cardinals, though, a reason that team was happy was because they didn't have any playoff aspirations at all. So the fact
Yeah, that's
the
true.
season's over, they get to go on vacation, they're done.
And if I could add, they seemed a lot happier when Kyler Murray went to Dallas to rehab his ACL knee. So,
And well, there's also that. But they never have. I've never thought that they have, and that's partially why people say things just because really in the end these athletes don't care, and you could just get a rise more out of the fans of whoever that player or
Yeah.
team is rather than the actual player. And the only time you're really going to get any sort of response is when you slander them or maybe go too far. They're all for critique, but they're all for critique. They say that because they're not really going to take your critique seriously. If like, I don't know. They all say that, fans are smart and all that, but at the same time, they also say like a lot of people don't know what's going on within the locker room and within the game. So really they don't care too much about it. It's good to have the banter and it's good to have the back and forth, but yeah, ultimately they don't care what we have to say too much. Like,
and that's why I don't care the same way with
Aaron Rodgers.
And also I kind of relate to watching that episode to Derek Carr, and we'll talk about it more later, but this article written by Sports Illustrated, written by, I want to give the guy credit here,
Hondo Carpenter.
Don't know him. Great name.
Jess, the cat's in the fireplace.
Your cat's in the fireplace?
Yeah, she went into the fireplace.
Is the fireplace lit?
No, it is not. It's
I don't mean that in the cool
never
way.
mind. She's good. Okay.
To answer Jesse's question, I do have a heater in my apartment. Thanks to Adam Copeland and Tim Webb for buying me one.
Why? What?
Jesse just asked if I have a heater in my apartment, and the answer is yes, I do. I just don't have it on currently.
Because you're wearing a beanie.
Yeah, and sometimes I just like rocking a beanie.
I get it. Okay, that makes sense. 8 Mile.
Yeah, but I'm a big 8 Mile fan. Be rad.
Yeah. So Hondo Carpenter, the piece that he wrote, I think it's revealing, but I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the format. Anyway, continue on.
You don't like the bullet points?
No.
I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, the bullet point is fine.
It's more readable to stupid people like me.
I guess maybe I needed like a laptop on to see it because I was reading it through my phone and I just kept on going. I was like, there's too many just
I know
sentences.
It didn't read like an actual article. It kind of read like a Cliff Notes type of thing. Right. But I do want to get into it, and the reason why I bring up the Cardinals Hard Knocks thing and everything with athletes don't caring is that I think that's a perfect example of Derek Carr not caring about what people think about him and his exit with the Raiders. We'll get to that a little bit later. Steven, let's talk about some playoff games. Super Wildcard weekend. Overall thoughts.
You all right?
Yeah, my light just fell. But anyway, go ahead.
Ooh. Overall thoughts. That's an incredibly loaded question. Overall thoughts? It went about as expected.
That was close.
Maybe the way, Niners and Seahawks, we expected that outcome, really. Like, in the end, all you could do is try to create reasons for why the Seahawks would possibly win. But the main point was Niners are more talented. They were the better team. They beat them twice in the regular season. They should be able to beat them at home. And they did in the second half when it really matters. The Seahawks going to keep it up in the first half. Then the game after that, Chargers-Jags. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That I had to rewatch that one. I had to rewatch the Cadets game of that one.
First of all, I went down to San Jose on Saturday, met up with you, our good friends Cody Elias, Alexander Scott, and Carl Buszek. And we had a good time, went to Rookies to watch the Niner game. Alexander Scott was very intense, as he didn't want his Niners to lose to, as he put it, those fucking guys.
Yes.
And then we went back to, was it Jax?
Yeah.
Jax to watch Chargers, Jaguars. And that was quite the comeback. And Steven, how many beers did you have that night?
A lot.
Yeah. How were you feeling Sunday morning?
I was feeling great on Sunday morning, Derek.
Sure,
Let's move past that. Chargers and Jags.
I'm just
what's
saying there's a reason why you had to watch back the condensed version.
what's funny is like my one takeaway from that game was not necessarily the outcome. It was more, I mean, of course, yeah, everything that happened with Joey Bosa and the penalties and overreacting, the Chargers just letting the Jags right back in. You can have that conversation about like whether you think that's on the quarterback, he needs to score another touchdown, or whether that's on the defense, blah, blah, blah. But like one of my main takeaways from it is, man, I feel terrible for saying this, but like Al Michaels,
I've heard this complaint by a lot of people.
it's just, I don't know, man. The guy is such a legend, and he's done so much in broadcasting, and it just seems like he's totally lost interest
Yeah.
in the whole thing. And I don't know if it was like the exit from NBC. I don't know what the whole backstory was there. I don't know if it's because he was angry that they put Tony Dungy alongside him, and I'm sure they don't really align in terms of world opinions. But like,
Yeah. Tony Dungy, not a fan of cats.
yeah, not a fan of cats, litter boxes in schools. But I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I mean, if next year, if he has the same enthusiasm that he had all season long next year, then I mean, I don't know. It's Al.
Well, he's still going to get the Thursday night job, in my belief, but I think
Right.
they have some options as far as upgrading from Herb Street. Maybe J.J. Watt, maybe Matt Ryan. We'll see who's available. But yeah, I would say Al Michaels' enthusiasm for that game-winning kick was a little lackluster. And Al Michaels is a fantastic broadcaster, and you know, engaged his whole career, has very memorable moments. But yeah, for that moment in that time, he just didn't have the great calls. So yeah, it kind of Al Michaels is going through the Al Pacino and Jack and Jill phase of his career, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't get enough of my Dunkachino.
I also think like this happens with Joe Buck too, but I can't stand it when in the main call they have to mention a flag. Like Joe Buck in some of his calls will like, and he catch the touchdown, no flags. And it's like, do you really have to yell no flags? Just if a flag happens, then mention it afterwards, but just let the call be the call. I don't know. I'm telling play-by-play guys how to do their job, and I'm not trying to, but I am. I just get very frustrated whenever flags are brought into it. It's like, well, there's a flag down on defense. Is there? It's on the defense. Okay, field goal's good.
It does ruin the call, but there's nothing worse than having a great call and then it not standing because of a flag.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Whatever. That's not your fault. Just have the great call. Don't worry about the flag if you're the broadcaster.
But it's wasted.
just
Squandered.
just make the call. That's all I'm saying. Just make the call
Okay.
without the flag.
Great segment by Chris Townsend back in the day.
And so what? Oh, nice. And so we're what going overall? You asked me overall, so I'm going to give you my overall. On Sunday,
Well, I meant like a general thing. We could go through each game.
general thing. Every team that won was supposed to win. I'm really.
Oh, really? Even your Giants?
Ooh, except for that one.
You basically said they had no business being in the playoffs.
Yeah, I did. Man, Daniel Jones was smooth.
Oh, he was smooth, all right.
He was incredibly smooth.
Or as he's called now, Danny Scrambles.
Is it really?
I guess I heard that at I went to Athletica with my little brother, and Giants fans were letting whoever know that they were there.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Like that.
By the
Saint
way,
fan.
also early in the morning, Arsenal taking over the bar with every TV on the Arsenal game.
Yeah,
What's going on?
they're the top team in the league.
I understand that, but we got Bills Dolphins going on. I had to watch the shit on my phone to start.
It was really Bills, and they had it over Bills Dolphins. Well, how many minutes were left in the game in the match?
Oh, it was probably a good 30 minutes.
Oof. That was fun to watch. Yeah,
And I hate being that guy to ask, hey, can I get this game on?
yeah.
But I also love being that guy.
Well, I mean, isn't Oakland Athletic Club like also kind of a soccer bar?
It is very much a soccer bar. It is very much
right.
a soccer bar.
Okay. Well, there you go.
They went all out for the World Cup.
So quit your complaining.
All right.
But anyway, I'm not real like overall from the weekend. Every team that, except for the Giants, every team that I thought was going to win I think I had Jacksonville also winning
You
too.
did. You did. By the way,
So,
you won. You beat me by 1 point.
oof.
That Giants pick didn't save me. I'm picking the I picked the Chargers and the Bucks, and that didn't save me.
Okay.
So I will do a punishment come, what are we doing? Saturday morning, Sunday morning. We'll figure out when we do this next podcast. But I will do. I
Mm.
will. I'm leaning towards not Ernie's mayonnaise in the coffee thing because that sounds disgusting and I don't drink coffee.
Will
So
Levis.
yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking I do the beer with a with some hot sauce in it.
Ugh.
You did that.
Beer with hot sauce.
Didn't you do that for the Tickle My Butthole League?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, that was tough. That was a nighttime thing. Anyway, yeah, back to the wild card weekend. I don't know. It's just everything happened the way that it did. Entertaining games, but I don't know. I'm not going to put too much stock into what happened this weekend, except for maybe what went on with the Giants because they looked like a really, really good team. But other than that, like the way that I thought it was going to go for the most part is how it's going to go next week, except I did not think the 49ers and Cowboys were going to be playing in the divisional round. I thought it was going to be the 49ers and the who did I think? Did I have I think I had the Bucks winning. So yeah, I thought
well, you had the Vikings winning, so it wouldn't have been the Vikings.
right. It would have been it would have been the Vikings, and then I think I had Cowboys winning anyway, so it would have been the Cowboys and the Eagles. That's how I thought it was going to go.
Well, let's get to all these games, but real quick before I do, just something I saw on Twitter before we started this podcast.
Ooh.
Steven, how are you going to do that to Joe Fortenbaugh?
Dude, he asked.
Okay, if anyone knows that video, though, my little brother showed me that years ago.
You are
God, that video
are,
scares the crap out of me.
You are lurking in the replies on Twitter.
Well, what do you want me to do? Just chime in and be like, yeah, Steven, you're being a real asshole here.
I don't know. Favorite it, like it, do something.
Nah, I didn't have time.
That scares me thinking that people are just looking at the responses. It was between me and Joe.
That's what. Well, exactly. That's how I left it be. For anyone wondering, what'd you do? You posted some robot video.
So there's a robot. Yeah, there's a robot video.
That scares the shit out of me too. We got to stop all this robot stuff.
It's terrifying.
Sex robots are funny, but I don't trust them.
What? It's so.
Keep going.
It's so. So, like the robot is creating pathways for it to walk and all these different things, which is fine.
It, huh?
But then, yeah, it. I think that's the pronoun. And then
I won't judge that then.
Did like a front flip somersault 180 and lands perfectly on its 2 feet, then bows. That's where I had the problem. So I was like, that's kind of like that video, the OG YouTube video where the car's riding along and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, the face hits you.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so when Fortenbaugh asked what it was, number one, I didn't know which to respond to because he was just made it a singular thing. I was like, well, it was my fault. I shouldn't have posted a picture attached to a video, but how else am I supposed to get across my point? So yeah, he asked for it and I sent him the video. I said, suit yourself. I gave him all the warning in the world. It's like, how am I going to get blamed when the video is clearly scary? I say it's scary, send it to me. And then I get blamed for doing that.
Did you make it clear that it was scary, though?
Huh?
Did you make it clear that it was scary?
Do I need to open up my...
No, you don't. I thought the whole thing was funny. But at that point, also, Fortenbaugh should know that video, I guess, to some degree. It's like being like, you're describing like, 2 girls, 1 cup, and then someone's like, I never heard of that before.
Yikes.
Anyway, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about some playoff games. So 49ers beat the Seahawks for a third time this season, 41-23. And everyone's talking about Brock Purdy struggling to start. He missed that one throw to begin, and it was kind of weird and, all over the place. But I think it was more so just the whole team not doing well. And
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, well, we'll get into it. But
yeah,
I thought that he played fine, and he made a fantastic move on that touchdown pass to Elijah Mitchell. I think the overall theme here is that not so much the quarterback position. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, everyone has been saved. Everyone on the 49ers has been saved this season by the addition of Christian McCaffrey. If this guy's not on the team, I don't know where they are. This guy brings a whole nother dimension to their offense. I think it's the acquisition of the year. You can, bring up A.J. Brown with the Eagles. I think Christian McCaffrey, in the limited time that he's been the 49ers running back, has been just paying off so much.
Been a
So I
safety
thought,
net.
exactly. So I thought that he played a fantastic game going to the playoffs for only the second time in his career. Debo Samuel making a fantastic play with that 74-yard touchdown, catch and run. The defense was struggling a little bit in the first half, not finding a way to cover DK Metcalf, but then they do great in the second half. They outscored the Seahawks 25-6 in the second half. Just simply put, I think it was the fact that the Niners' talent just overcame in the second half, and the Seahawks couldn't match it. And Geno Smith played a fine game, and Kenneth Walker Jr. played fine, but that Seahawks team overall just can't compete with what the talent of the 49ers have.
No doubt. And they had to play a perfect game. Like, that was it. And they didn't. And, as we were sitting there, I was telling you that in that second half, when the Seahawks are driving downfield after the Niners just straight up scored a touchdown right out of the halftime, when the Seahawks are driving downfield, and then on that play, I think it was a 1st and 10, or no, excuse me. It was what was it? It was
what point in the game are you talking about?
It was the second possession or the first possession of the Seahawks for the second half. So it's when the Seahawks are driving downfield. They just made it the Niners, that is, made it a 23
to 17.
Correct. And they made it a 23-17 game. Seahawks are driving downfield, and then illegal man downfield. 5-yard penalty. They go back. Instead of it being whatever it was, I think it was like it would have been a 3rd and 2. It moves them back to a 3rd and 12. Or I could be wrong on the yardage there. But nevertheless, that's when the fumble recovery happened.
Yep.
On that 3rd down play. So it's just little things like that. You can't get away with it for the entire game. I think they were able to in the first quarter, but you can't get away, or in the first half, but you can't get away with it for the entire game. And also, like, why, if you're the opponent, would you decide to give this 49er team any motivation? Like, Jonathan Abram, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what hey, what you doing? Why are you grabbing the ankle and twisting it of their number one guy, Debo Samuel? Do you not think that's going to make them a little bit angry?
Yeah, Jonathan Abram's never been the, I don't know, I guess the most level-headed individual.
Situationally aware?
Yes. From pronouncing salmon to twisting guys' legs. And furthermore, proves my point that the Khalil Mack trade was a gigantic bust. But we'll get to that another day when the Raiders don't have all those guys that they use those draft picks on. Regardless, Jonathan Abram gets...
It's been 5 years.
I'm still going to prove that point, that all that went to waste.
That's
but
fine.
Jonathan
Abram came through I think Abram came through with a Cooper pick, didn't he? So,
I mean, yeah, the whole thing, the whole
there you
rebuild,
go,
Steven.
So there you go.
Anyway, my point being that Jonathan Abram, in the short amount of time he's been in the NFL, is doing shit like this, where he's already been cut as a first-round draft pick and is on his 3rd team, and for whatever reason is doing stuff like that to Debo Samuel. So, yeah, that's all you need to say about that. It was just kind of a classless move.
Right, 100%. But it's also something that's going to fuel the team. Like, I saw what Joe Staley said on your station earlier, which is hilarious. Just when the fact that Kyle Shanahan shoulder checked a guy, then you look at the game logs and you look back, it's like, oh yeah, he did run 5 straight times following that play. But I do think Purdy struggled in the first half. I do. I think that he was missing throws that he would normally make. That one to Jawan, it was a fantastic throw. But that's the type of throw, like, I'm on the side of, that's not the best throw though. That's easily one that could have been intercepted. It just went his way. I don't know. Like, if you make that play, if you make that throw 5 times, I don't know, you might complete it maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. It's just it was a low percentage type of throw, but still he completed it. So who cares? But overall, like, in the second half, this dude's unbelievable. Like, I don't know if I realized in the moment with that incompletion to Ayuk, like I knew it was awesome, but I didn't realize like, damn, he really just rolled to his left, went all the way back across field, completely just stood in and took a hit. It was kind of like that play that Jarrett Stidham did with against the Niners when he rolled out to his left and took that hit against Adams. Although the throw from Purdy, that was impressive. It was a very impressive toss to Ayuk, and I'm sure Ayuk wanted that one back.
Yeah, I would say that Brock Purdy wasn't great in the first half, but I don't. I mean, like I don't know. I don't think it was as bad as everyone was saying. It wasn't like he was, crapping himself, having all the turnovers or
No,
anything like that. And I'm still waiting for that day to come, if it is going to come. But it just is poise. I think everyone's been talking about it.
yeah,
Everyone has
poise
just
and
been
confidence. Those are the two
poised,
words.
poised in
And
confidence.
slithery now, apparently.
A little bit in that one play to Elijah Mitchell. And I think he's just playing very well. And Jay Glazer before the game reported that if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy for an NFC Championship game or any playoff game in which he would be able to return at full strength, that he will remain as the backup. And Brock Purdy would still start the rest of the way. And that is very risky considering that a rookie has never taken a team to the Super Bowl.
Right.
But there's something about this Brock Purdy guy. I don't know if it's going to last. I don't know. I think eventually history will catch up with him as far as rookie quarterbacks and everything. I think he's benefited from playing, opponents that have not been up to the same level as the Niners, and I think that this week is going to be a true test for that. But I think he's playing fantastic now, and yeah, I for a rookie in that situation, yeah, he may have had a few missed throws in the first half, but we see a lot of guys, Connor Cook in his first start, and that was unfair because that was just his first game ever. But we've seen Ben Roethlisberger or other rookie quarterbacks just have real stinkers of a first time out there. So I thought he played very well.
Well, back to your original point. What got the Niners really going in the second half was their play action ability, and it was set up immediately in that first quarter when McCaffrey ran for 66 yards or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they set the tone right there, and that instantly threw the game. Like, they managed to stop him in the first half, and Elijah Mitchell didn't really do anything. But in the second half, once they were out of that once they got that first touchdown out of halftime, and then they got the forced fumble, then they run it 5 straight times. Like, that's it. You're done. You're done because they're just going to hit you with play action. And that's what they did. Every time that he hits play action, it feels like there's wide open receivers. And it's, and that's not me trying to knock Purdy or anything and say he's a part of the system, but that's just what the 49ers do. And now you have a quarterback who could throw it on the run, can roll out. They look really good. Really good.
They look really good, but I don't think it's a knock saying that Purdy is a system quarterback. That's why I say like the Tom Brady rumors, and then we talked about it last week before the game itself on the pregame, was that the Niners are somewhat interested in Tom Brady this offseason. And I don't know if that's really going to happen because I think that they want to save some money and roll with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance next season. But, I do understand the intrigue there. But Brock gives you something that they haven't had in a while, which is a quarterback that can move a little bit in the pocket. He doesn't have the greatest arm, and that was apparent in the Raider game where he threw that kind of fluttering duck to Amick Robertson. But I think it's going to be very interesting going forward, and I think it's something that we've put on hold for a long time, and it's an off-season topic, obviously, but Trey Lance and him is going to be very interesting going forward. Very interesting.
This might be too hot takey.
Oh, God.
And it might be. But I just got to double check this because I was thinking, and I got to type this up. I was thinking, this whole Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, like I'm not even like I don't think that's going to happen. I think even Jimmy Garoppolo would think to himself, like, yeah, sure, I want to come back into the postseason, but look at these guys rolling with Purdy right now. They keep on putting up 30 plus points a game. I'm not going to just come in and ruin what they got going on right now. Maybe he might have half a mind to do that. But the Trey Lance thing with him having his second surgery, like I'm almost at the point where if Purdy manages to come away with a win after this game and he plays like he did against the Seahawks, where he just looks like he can run the offense, Like, I think after this win, I almost think it's a done deal that Purdy's going to be the starter next year. Yeah.
You were
Just
skeptical about that when I brought this up a couple months ago.
Yeah, well, it's a couple of months. I was very skeptical. I hadn't seen him play.
Just give me the credit I deserve, please.
You didn't know. Nobody
Oh,
knew.
I knew.
Nobody knew. Nobody
Steven,
knew that he was going to do this.
I didn't know he was.
including the
I didn't
team.
know. I didn't know he was going to do this.
Right.
And by the way, Peter Schrager, he did not qualify for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Sorry. But he's doing a fantastic job. I did think though that he could do a little bit of something because there's obviously there's something that Kyle likes in him. And I heard rumors. I mean, my dad's at training camp. He talks to the coaches. There was rumors about Brock Purdy being better off in this offense than Trey Lance back in training camp. But I don't know. Who's to say? Who knows?
Right.
The bottom line is this right now. Brock Purdy's doing a fantastic job. We'll just see where it goes because, like I said, he's playing fantastic, but I'm still waiting for him to look like a rookie. I do think it's going to happen eventually.
That's the question, though. And if there's going to be a game where he looks like a rookie, it might be this one. Or, maybe I'd be saying the same thing about the Eagles game. But the Cowboys have a damn good defense. And they are, I believe they're number one in fumbles. Yes, they are currently they've forced 17, I believe is the number.
Quite a bit of fumbles.
And that is ranked number one in the league.
I don't think Brock Purdy's fumbled yet.
He has not. And that's something I'm going to be interested to watch because, like, I don't care what anybody says. The Cowboys defense is better this year. Like, they ask what's different about it. It's like, well, Micah Parsons is a year removed, and now he's Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Trayvon Diggs, he's kind of come back down to earth, but overall, they got a pretty damn good defense. I think Leighton Vander Esch as a middle linebacker has kind of come back. What's his face? DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, they got a solid defense. I don't know. I guess my point is if he can get past this Dallas team, I don't even think it matters what happens against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is like the top tier. But if he can get past
Are they
Dallas,
though?
Yeah. I mean, they haven't played well lately. So I'd be kind of hypocritical.
The Niners may surpass them right now as being the top tier team in
maybe
all of football.
Maybe. Yeah. But they are top tier in the NFC though.
Well, yes.
So I think, I personally think that he's probably locked himself in as a starter if he gets the win over the Cowboys on Sunday.
Wow. Well, we'll see where that goes.
Especially doing it against that Dallas team who's like, which is a really cool rivalry. Like the Tale of Two Cities is an awesome documentary on NFL Network. I think I watched that last year when they were facing the Cowboys in the playoffs. And then
Sam Elliott.
Yeah, and oh God, who was the other one?
Jeremy Renner.
That's
hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, hope so. He's home, Jesse says. So
good. Go.
That's good.
Thanks, Jesse.
But yeah, pretty damn good postseason rivalry, man. Like the 9th time they're facing each other. The fact that, these past 2 decades, every decade that I've really, been cognizant of what football is, like they haven't really had any moments. So it's always made you kind of look at it like, what do the Niners and Dallas fans have against each other? But then you look back at the past, it's like, damn.
Oh, it's just an old school NFL history thing from the catch to the early 90s to T.O. going to the star.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history there, and we'll talk about it more whenever we do the podcast. I want to say Saturday. Saturday good with you?
Yeah.
All right. That was a lukewarm, yeah, but all right.
Yeah, Saturday's fine.
Fantastic. But yeah, debate is even that this is the biggest game in Levi's history coming up this weekend. And I think it is, considering I understand they went to the NFC Championship game and they beat the Packers, but this is the Cowboys. This is I would say their most hated rival. And slowly but surely, Levi's is making its own history playoff-wise.
Right.
Candlestick has numerous historic moments in NFL history, from the catch to all the playoff games against the Cowboys to the comeback against the Giants. There's so many Candlestick memories that Levi's has yet to have those moments. So far, it's all been blowouts. They have the blowout game against the Vikings. They just shit all over the Packers in the NFC Championship game when Raheem Mostert ran for 4 touchdowns. And then last week, I'm hoping for a close game. We'll see what happens. I think it will be between these two defenses. But we haven't had a classic moment yet at Levi's that hasn't been positive for the Niners, at least.
No, the classic moment, like
Richard Sherman eating turkey on the 50.
yeah, I don't I don't know if you're going to get something kind of like what happened last year. Last year was massive. The Dak just the Niners defense just looking lost when the Cowboys are driving downfield to possibly tie the game. And then
Oh no,
Dak,
just take the lead. They were up by 6.
yeah. I mean, well, who knows with Brett Maher
Oh yeah,
making
true.
an extra point, but like, dude, that play, massive play. Like that would have lived on in Levi's lore just because of this big mistake from the Cowboys and how scared they were. But instead, it was in Dallas, so we don't really look at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it more come Saturday. But the everything that going into the game, is it an advantage for the Niners to have a little bit more time than the Cowboys? From where they were a year ago, are both teams better? I would say yes, but we'll talk about it more.
From both teams are. It might be a better game than it was last year.
Oh, I think it will be. I think definitely both. I mean, the Cowboys were the number one scoring offense in football last season, and now this season they had obviously great moments, but I think overall as a team, I think they're just better defensively and offensively, and they're figuring out their running game with Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott now. So it'll be interesting come Sunday.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting.
yeah.
All right, other
I mean,
games.
they like my whole thing is just turnovers. Like that's what it's maybe obvious, but the Cowboys don't turn the ball over. The Niners don't turn the ball over. I mean, this is going to be a big one. Anyway, continue.
Well, Dak does.
Excuse me. Not. Yeah. Well, other than that, sorry. Not the
Yes.
Cowboys don't turn the ball over. The Cowboys force a lot of turnovers, and the Niners don't turn the ball over. Excuse me.
Yes. We'll talk about it more. There's a whole lot more to talk about. Other games. So we talked about it briefly.
So the Cowboys and Niners.
We got all week to talk about it, Stephen. Well, not all
Continue.
week, but next podcast talk about it. All right, other wildcard games.
Mhm.
So we were at Jack's to watch Chargers Jaguars, and 27-0. I was thinking pretty good that the Chargers were going to win that game. I thought they were moving the ball pretty well. I thought that the defense was obviously playing well with the 4 interceptions. Asante Samuel Jr. with 3 picks. And then the Chargers, as we like to say, just started charging. And this is like the biggest case I've ever seen of a team just living up to what they always do. They do this every time in the playoffs, and with a team with that much talent, that should not happen. For them to be up 27-0, to get those 4 interceptions, and then to just get outscored 31-3 is ridiculous.
Right.
And so that's what happened in the end. The Jaguars come back down from 27-0. It's the 3rd biggest comeback in NFL history as far as the playoffs. Even though Al Michaels was sleepwalking during the whole game, it was massive. And a big, big moment for Trevor Lawrence in his small career so far in the NFL. Doug Peterson, I think, made all the difference. Brandon Staley said, that he was asked today if he was outcoached by Doug Peterson. And he was like, well, not in the first half. That doesn't really matter. When you make adjustments, that's what matters to me, Brandon. And I'm very surprised he still has his job. But yeah, Steven, I thought that the Chargers just totally mismanaged that game. I thought the Jaguars, though, have been living up to this their whole season. They don't play very well in the first halves of games. They obviously did that with the Raiders. They did that with the Cowboys. They did that a couple weeks ago against the Titans to go to the playoffs.
Right.
And then it paid off, I should say. So I was very impressed with the Jaguars. I think they'll only get better from here. Whatever happens with the Chiefs is whatever happens. And yeah, I think it's just another case of the Chargers just being the Chargers.
Dude, I do give the Jags a lot of credit. I do give the Jags a lot of credit for them coming back. But it's the complementary football thing, Derek, that we talk about all the time, And this is a case where the defense needed to step up. Like, okay, I really do give the Jaguars a lot of credit for what they did because they were running some really nice plays, and that touchdown to Christian Kirk to make it 30-20 was awesome. Mm-hmm. But when the Chargers offense gives them a little bit of a break, because coming out of the second half, on the first couple of possessions, the Chargers offense only gave them like 2 minutes to rest on defense when the Jaguars just drove downfield, right? So that's really hard for a defense to come back from. But when the Chargers offense gives you 6 minutes, 50 seconds on a drive, and you absolutely need to make a stop on this 30-20, like that drive after the missed field goal, inexcusable, right? Can't have that happen. And then, of course, the final drive where these guys just flip out and everything starts to go wrong. And it was terrible. It was terrible in that second half. Undisciplined. The defense let them down. Just didn't work.
Yeah, and I know that Brandon Staley fired offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi and quarterbacks coach Shane Day. But honestly, the defense didn't do any better, and that's on him.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also, like, there was something I saw with Joe Lombardi where he called a play that normally would have been called for Mike Williams, and he called it for like a third stringer or a fourth string wide receiver who never runs that play, and it just goes for nothing. It was the jet sweep.
Yeah,
it's like a play they normally. So just the fact that you're not even willing to switch things up just because you like when you have one of your best players out, I think that's a problem.
No, it was, and I think 13 carries up 27-0 for Austin Eckler is not enough. I know they're not a running team, but I think when you have a lead, you got to go with it a little bit. But also, I thought the Chargers were never explosive offensively all season long, and I think with that type of, I mean, they haven't been. Honestly, they haven't been explosive since Justin Herbert's rookie season with Anthony Lynn. And even though that they're playing better football with Brandon Staley, you could say, I don't think the offense has played to expectations that Justin Herbert has showed in his rookie season. So overall, I thought it was a terrible performance by the Chargers to go from 27-0 to then losing the game. Joey Bosa, I know, freaked out and threw his helmet and everything. And then it looked like he threw it at Brandon Staley, but he was just frustrated. Did you hear his reaction the next day?
That's what I'm thinking about right now. Yeah, just hating the refs. What?
Are we trying to pull it up, or are we just talking about it?
I can pull it up right now.
If you have it. If you don't, no biggie. But yeah, Joey Bosa, just in his, California style. Well, actually, he's not from California. He's from Florida. Yeah. But just the way that he talks, he's like, yeah, these refs think that, they could just, fuck up our night and throw 15-yard penalties on us. Like, oh, I got that guy. Right. So yeah, I thought that it was a great performance by the Jaguars. Not gonna take anything away from them, but with the amount of talent that the Chargers have on their team, oh, here we go.
I think I need to be more accountable for my actions, obviously, but it's a heated game. I think there just needs to be more accountability on. I mean, if I say something to them, I get a $40,000 fine. But if they blow a call that ruins an entire team's season, they're probably back in the locker room after the game, like, got that. Yeah, got him 15 yards. What a loser! I guarantee it. That's what they're fucking talking like.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah,
all time.
Yeah, I thought that it goes back to the offseason with all the hype and everything from the Raiders to the Broncos to the Chargers, and the Chargers were the only ones to make the playoffs, along with the Chiefs, obviously. But with the additions that the Chargers made with, Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson and everything on defense, you thought that they were going to be a lot better. And simply put, they weren't. They were good enough to make the playoffs this year, but I never thought they really upgraded from a year ago. I thought they were basically the same team. And so that's why, blowing the 27-0 lead, I thought, and we all thought at Jax, and pretty much the whole country thought, that Brandon Staley was going to be fired.
Yep.
And we all have heard the rumors, and I've been talking about it with you, that if they have the opportunity to get Sean Payton, they should do that. It's probably going to cost you a first-round pick. That's the compensation you would have with him being under contract still with the Saints. But I think it's worth it. And the thing that always is the case with the Chargers is that they're cheap. And Dean Spanos does not want to pay a lot of money for his coaches. So to think that, and a lot of people that know the Chargers very well were never thinking that they were going to get Sean Payton. So it sounds like they're out on Sean Payton. They're not going to do it, and they're keeping Brandon Staley. And that is a huge mistake, in my opinion. Huge mistake where I think that you could make Justin Herbert that much better. You can make the whole team that much better if Sean Payton wants to bring Vic Fangio with him. I think it's a huge, huge missed opportunity for them to do this, but whatever. So they're going to look for an offensive coordinator. Frank Reich, his name's been brought up, but I think it is a massive, poor decision to not go after Sean Payton for the Chargers.
Interesting. I really don't know enough in totality with Staley because before this wild card game, it was that he made this defense better. So I don't know if you could just say he didn't get the best out of, like, JC Jackson was also hurt for some of the season, but
no doubt.
And also Mac is not the superstar that you still think that he is. Like, let's just face it. He's not. He's great, but he's not like an absolute superstar anymore. Where if he's on your defense, you should also automatically be the number one in the NFL. Like, it's not like that anymore. And
disagree, but okay.
I think that he did get a good, he didn't just do nothing with the defense. I think he did improve the Chargers defense. Though
no. I'm not saying you do anything.
His handling of the players and their injuries, putting them in at unnecessary times.
Yes.
Like, if the Chargers would have had Mike Williams in that game, I think it's a different game. I really do. Mike Williams can change the game, like, in multiple ways. Makes at least, like, he makes one catch a game where you look at it and you think that's like one of the most difficult catches I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I just don't know about him being fired, because also I kind of go by the same mantra that you tend to repeat whenever I think somebody should be gone from their specific position, which is, well, who's going to replace him? And I mean, maybe Sean Payton could have been that guy, but I don't know. Would Sean Payton get the best out of Drew Brees, or not Drew Brees, out of Justin Herbert when he had a guy like Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was kind of a different type of quarterback?
No, I totally think so.
Yeah.
No, the only reason I bring it up is because it's been pretty clear that Sean Payton wanted that job.
Right.
So now he's going to settle for a lesser job, in my opinion, if he goes to the Broncos or Cardinals, wherever he wants to go.
Yeah.
But Steven, to answer your question when you said, well, who's going to replace him? If you have an answer and that person's willing to do that job, then yes, I say you take that opportunity.
Yeah.
So
okay. That makes sense.
We'll see what happens with the Chargers. I'm not going to act like Brandon Staley didn't do a good job this season. He did. He improved that team, and he went less crazy with the fourth down calls. But also, I think he got a lot of his players hurt this season. I think it's his fault that Jalen Guyton tore his ACL. I think it's his fault that Mike Williams hurt his back. And I think it's his fault that they blew that 27-0 lead.
And also Herbert and the ribs.
Yes.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Moving on to other games, just to put these two games together.
Yeah.
Did you think the Bills and Bengals kind of didn't show up for their games, considering that they were playing backup quarterbacks, or was it more of the case that they were playing division opponents that know them very well for a third time this season?
I think it was a little bit of both. I'd say that the didn't show up for that game would be more on the
Bills.
Yeah, I'd say that's way more on the Bills. Like the Ravens, after all, I've underrated their defense like a lot of the season. Or
Ravens?
Yeah, maybe even not underrated them, just like not even really thought about them as one
overlooked it.
Yeah, just overlooked them totally as a premier defense. And then when you're watching those middle linebackers do their work, like Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, like those guys are awesome. So I thought they did a pretty good job against the Bengals. But yeah, the Bills, I mean, that was just a classic case of Bills shooting themselves in the foot and then the Dolphins taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that they looked fine in the first quarter. They were up 17-0, and then Josh Allen just got too careless, especially with the fumble in the second half that was returned for a touchdown.
Yes.
Josh Allen, while I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in football and maybe the second best quarterback, has not been himself for a while now, I would say. He's been a little more gunslingery, and he always has been that, but I think it's just causing more turnovers lately. He's not playing smart football. Like, in the playoffs a year ago against the Patriots and Chiefs.
Yeah.
And maybe this was a good wake-up call for them. I think, a lot of people are saying that the Damar Hamlin thing is going to, light a fire under the Bills and have them be super focused and win the championship. It could also have them off their game a little bit, and I think that's been the case so far. I know that everybody was talking about that first game back against the Patriots, and while they did put up 35 points, I think their defense played very well. I don't think their defense has played well for a little bit of time now. So it's rare to have a wake-up call in the playoffs, and I think the Bills benefited from that, but I think they could play a lot better football.
Yeah, I think so too. And missing out on Von Miller and the other defensive end whose name is escaping me right now is really starting to hurt them. Not much of a pass rush.
Who else is out for them?
But it's I forgot the other guy on the edge.
Greg Russo?
No, I forgot who it was.
Shaq Lawson's playing.
There's another guy that they're missing out there.
I'll look it up. Finish your point.
But I wanted to ask you, because I do have a take on both the Bills and the Bengals, but toward the end of that Bills-Dolphins game, I mean, that miscommunication, do you think that did you see Dan Orlovsky?
No, I do not think that Mike McDaniel was using a vape on the sideline. Was that your question?
No.
Stupid.
What, you didn't think he was using a vape?
No, I don't. I think he was cold. He's blowing his goddamn hands on his fingers.
Interesting.
You think he was?
I think there's a very likely chance that he was.
Come on. Seriously, during an NFL game? Playoff game?
Maybe. I don't know.
No way.
I don't know.
Doing that.
Like, come on. Guys take what? Shots of stuff in the locker room before games sometimes. You've heard that on Peyton's Places.
If he's going to do it before the game in the locker room or like smelling salts and all that shit, I don't care.
When it's 27
like during the game, no.
When it's 27 degrees and it's sunny out, I mean, what better time to disguise a vape smoke than because when the air's that cold and
he's
you're
not Gus Johnson during a college basketball game.
Well, I'm telling you, I think he did. But my thing with the Bills though and the Bengals is I think the Bills are better set up here to win from the divisional round on, and that's specifically because of the offensive line injury that happened. Missing Jonah. Like, I heard this point, and this is something that really it blew my mind. Like, the first 15 weeks of the season, they never sustained an offensive lineman injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then in each one since, at least prior to the wild card round, 3 of them down. And I'm pretty sure that they were guys that they acquired in the offseason. And Jonah Williams was, of course, their first round draft pick who missed all of his first year with a torn ACL. So I don't know. I just see them kind of being are they as good as the Chiefs, where the Chiefs can get away with using second or third string offensive linemen? Or I mean, is that going to hamper them in this next matchup? I'm really interested to see that.
I think it will. I think it would have been really hard for them if Von Miller was still healthy. I think the Bengals are going to have some offensive line issues, but then again, that didn't stop them a year ago. They suffered 9 sacks in that playoff game against the Titans and still rolled on to the Super Bowl, but then it became an issue against the Rams.
Right.
As far as the playoff game, though, against the Ravens, I agree with you, Steven, that I think it was more so the fact that they weren't just downplaying their opponents, but it was more the fact that they were just playing teams that knew them very well.
Yeah.
And John Harbaugh had a good game plan, despite the fact that he was upset with Melissa Stark's questions. Which also, I like what Erin Andrews said recently. She has a podcast, and she said that when sideline reporters have to do that, they feel uncomfortable about it, and then they're in coach's world a little bit. So let's not crap on John Harbaugh for that. He was trying to do his job. As far as the game itself, the turning point was Snoop Huntley fumbling on the 1-yard line and have it returned all the way back by Sam Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
And if Lamar Jackson plays that game, it could be a different story. If Tua Tagovailoa is healthy for that playoff game, it could be a different story. But in the end, I thought that the Bills and Bengals did enough to win their games. Obviously, they did. So I can't wait for their matchup this weekend, and it's going to be very interesting considering that Damar Hamlin is now out of the hospital, and he could go to Buffalo for that game. And also, if we're going to have the AFC Championship game at a neutral site, I wonder about this game as well, because if the Bengals had won this game a couple weeks ago, they would have been hosting this game.
Right.
But
What just happened? Jesse's going nuts. I think the Sharks just tied the game.
did they?
Ours, yeah.
I'm in my Sharks pool, and you know who
You made it. You made it in the glass. She just threw something and made it in the glass. Anyway, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. They just tied it anyway. Total distraction.
Oh, nice.
Go back to watching the game.
Damn. Didn't pay for my Sharks pool.
Mm,
Anyway.
tough.
Yeah. Any more thoughts on those two games, Steven?
No, not so much. Like, my whole takeaway is I really think the Bills, even though they've looked like crap, there's also times where they just absolutely turn it on and look and just look like that best team in the NFL that we saw in the first half of the season. They've been really inconsistent since really prior to Thanksgiving, just a little bit before. Then they turned it on again. So I don't know. I'm whatever with the Bills, but the Bengals, I'd be worried about their offensive line and if the pass rush can get to them whenever they play. Although that's what's going to make it interesting too, is the Bills don't have a ton of pass rush, as you mentioned. So that's what yeah, don't really have any other opinions on those two games.
All right. Well, we'll see how it plays out this weekend for a very, very good slate of games, as we'll talk about that a little later.
Ooh.
You did not think the Giants had any chance against the Vikings.
I did not.
And it turns out that they had more than a chance. They won the game.
Yeah.
And thanks to Saquon Barkley running the football and Daniel Jones running the football and passing for 300 yards.
Yep.
I think that when it's all said and done, you have to think about for Coach of the Year, and obviously you don't take playoffs into account. That does not reflect on the award itself. But from taking a team from where it was a year ago to where they are now, I don't think anyone has done a better job than Brian Daboll, who looks like me, apparently, according to Steven. There was a point during the Seahawks 49ers game where he kept looking back at the screen and then looking back at me when Brian Daboll was on the screen. That was nice of you.
I apologize. But yeah, I think he's right up there. He should be. I don't know. It's between him and I think Nick Sirianni. We've kind of forgotten about Nick Sirianni because the Eagles aren't as good, but I think he's right there too.
I think that's more of a Howie Roseman Executive of the Year award. In my
but
opinion.
yeah, and it could be the same with the Niners, and then Daboll gets the coaching job with the Giants because he's essentially doing it with the same players. And nobody's really at wide receiver. Like, you couldn't even name the guy.
Hodges.
Now you can name him because he went off. But I remember you're like, what's the other guy's name? Hodgins?
Hodges?
Yeah. It's like, what? But
Yeah.
he went off. Like, that drive, it was coming out of the second half, which made it eventually made it 24-14. But it was just so, like, 3 straight plays, 10 yards to Hodgins, 24 yards to Barkley, another 32 yards to Hodgins. They're at the Minnesota 12. And then you get 3 yards with Darius Slayton, just a quick pass. And then you get another one open in the end zone to some guy named Bellinger. And it's right away, 24-14, boom. And it's just the little tricks that they were doing in the red zone, like the little crafty handoffs, everything. The Statue of Liberty. There was one where
Oh, yeah. The Statue of Liberty play was beautiful.
Statue of Liberty was awesome. And then there was a fake. There was like a double fake to the running back. Also,
Yeah.
just the creativity in the Reds. I was really, really impressed with the way that the Giants played. And I also think that the Vikings just, the defense couldn't stop anybody. The Vikings offense I kind of look at, but the Vikings defense wasn't doing them any favors.
No, I think the Vikings were who we thought they were, to take it from Eddie Green, their former coach.
Yeah.
They were just frauds. Played well for the majority of the season, and they were in a lot of close games and then got blown out by good teams. But yeah, I just didn't think that they were able to stop the run. And I have to say this too. I think Brian Daboll is probably the second best coach next to Kyle Shanahan when it comes to scheming up running plays. That guy just knows how to get the ball into athletes' hands that are going to go up the field.
Right.
All with the whole, with all of the jet sweeps and just very creative plays that are not going to be explosive plays as far as getting the ball down the field. Like, Daniel Jones finished with 300 yards passing, but it was the running game. It was Daniel Jones running. It was Saquon Barkley running. It was getting the ball into non-running backs' hands for rushing. Kenny Galladay not doing much receiving-wise, but laying out a fantastic block. And yeah, the Vikings on defense the whole season have not been great. And I wonder what they're going to do going forward as far as, Kirk Cousins. He had a solid season, but, same thing with Derek Carr. I wonder if in a couple of years whether they're just going to tired of him kind of having the same kind of stagnant success with them. But yeah, I thought I was thoroughly impressed with the Giants. Defensively, they've been solid all season. And I think it's going to benefit them going forward against the Eagles. Don't know if they'll beat the Eagles, but I think that their defense has carried them along with their running game.
Yeah.
And then just real quick, what the hell was Kirk Cousins doing on that last play? I understand he was getting rushed and he had Dexter Lawrence in his face, but 4th and 8, and you're dumping it down to T.J. Hawkinson for a 3-yard gain. The season's on the line. That reminded me of a lot of Derek Carr plays.
Right.
I need more than that on when the game's on the line and the season's on the line.
And I'm willing to hear the explanation. I'm willing to hear, the play broke down and, he thought that getting it to Hawkinson in the flat was going to be their best chance of success for a first down or something, just because the coverage is what dictated it, but is what dictated that decision. But my whole thing is, like, you have Justin Jefferson. It's the second half, and you attempted it how many times to him?
Not a lot.
I'm seeing here 3 times in the second half. 3 times they attempted it to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm just double checking with
You're probably right. You're probably right.
I'm looking at the game logs here, and I typed in, Justin Jefferson in the thing, or Jay Jefferson, so it pops up the keyword. Yeah. Pretty sure they only gave it to him 3 times, and none in the final 3 drives. That's just, you can't do that. You can't. Yeah. I told you Justin Jefferson was going to go off because I thought he was. And then turns out didn't
held
happen.
him to 7 catches for 47 yards.
Terrible.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of how he finished the season too. Was just a lot of teams were centered on stopping him.
TJ, I mean Hawkinson had a lot of open. For all
he benefited from the double team of Justin Jefferson.
He did. He was also taking advantage of it too. That's when the Vikings were actually moving the ball downfield in that second half, was when they were getting it to Hawkinson, and also the first half too when they scored at the end. But man, that was the issue though. You're not getting it to your best player, not at all in the second half. That's just, you can't do that.
Yeah. No, and it's back to Brian Dable for a second. Just what he's working with talent-wise. You look at the receiving numbers. Hodgins, 8 catches, 105 yards. Darius Slayton, 4 catches for 88 yards. And we know who Darius Slayton is. But he kind of fell off a little bit the last few years with the Giants. Saquon Barkley catching 5 balls for 56 yards. And Richie James, a guy that was with the Niners and got cut, he's catching 4 passes for 31 yards. When this team gets some talent around them, they're going to be a little scary, just as far as the play calling from Brian Dable. And I think Daniel Jones, like we're wondering about the future with the 49ers quarterback position. I know that he's a free agent, and I don't know if he deserves a ton of money, but I think that he proved his point to be their starter going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell of a job overall by the Giants and the staff that they put together, and Brian Daboll too. Like, I don't know, does Daboll also get credit for Coach of the Year for maybe making the hires that he makes? Because those are the guys that hire the assistant coaches. But the fact that last year, when the Raiders acquired Patrick Graham, they said that they're getting this guy from the Giants who, stuffed these teams and held these certain teams who normally scored at a really high output. They held them to a certain number of points. Like, this is why Patrick Graham's going to be great. But then next year, he's gone. Now they bring in Brian Dable, but they also bring in Wink Martindale. Who has, I mean, this Giants defense has been what has gotten them to the playoffs, because it certainly hasn't been their offense performing like it did in that wild card round. So just all around, but yeah, that should be what the Coach of the Year is. It's not just like who has the winningest team, but who has done it with like the least amount of talent. And I also think like turning around a team too from where they were this season previous. I think that plays a factor. And that's what I think goes against Kyle Shanahan possibly winning Coach of the Year. I think Executive of the Year for John Lynch is right there. But I don't know about Coach of the Year for Shanahan. That's why.
Yeah, I know. I think that if it was other years, he may have a strong case for it. But so many teams that were not great a year ago improving kind of maybe leaves Kyle Shanahan being the odd man out, even though it was very impressive to win with 3 different quarterbacks this season. But
Question.
yeah, answer, hopefully.
If you were to pick an NFL player's body to have, would you pick Nick Bosa's or Danielle Hunter's? Danielle Hunter's just ripped.
Yeah. So is Nick Bosa.
Yeah. It makes you think a little bit.
I'm going to go with Dexter Lawrence.
Nice.
Great big
game.
old belly.
Great game. Great game. What did he say? You hugged me more than my girlfriend. You see that mic up? Yeah.
Now, if I'm going all time, I'd probably go with BJ Raji. Because he was a big man. Big
Vince
boy.
Wilfork. Vince Wilfork.
Vince Wilfork, yeah. Pretty good with those overalls.
But
he can move too.
Yeah.
BJ Raji.
Yeah.
Show me what you got. What you got, Raji.
But yeah, that fourth down play, terrible toward the end. Just,
yeah.
I don't know. Just an embarrassing loss for the Vikings. Embarrassing for them. That's why, when that's why I think Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, like you mentioned his name already, like they really are that comparable, because when fans do see Carr possibly take his team to the playoffs next season, I think you're going to see a postseason game a little like that one at some point, whether it's the wild card or divisional or championship. You're bound to see one out of the 3 games by Carr, something like that, where it's just some mistake where it's like, what are you doing?
Well, we'll see where he ends up as we finish up Wildcard Weekend real quick. Monday night, it ended with the Cowboys beating down the Bucs. And just simply put, the Cowboys were the better team. Questions of whether or not the Bucs should even be in the playoffs in the first place, but someone's got to win the NFC South. So it was just a utter beatdown, despite Brent Maher missing 4 extra points. And we'll see about him going forward, as he's got a case of the yips. And if the game's on the line between the Niners, I don't know if they're going to go to him. But as far as the game itself, the pass rush was just too much from the Cowboys with Tom Brady. And I think Tom Brady said his goodbyes to the Buccaneers franchise, but we'll get to that a little bit. Just your thoughts on the game, Steven. Is just a beatdown. Cowboys were the better team.
Yeah, Dak Prescott looked awesome. That's really it. Dak Prescott looked awesome. He looked like when the Buccaneers started going no huddle, at the end of the game, and actually started to move the ball. It's kind of like that's the only way they could have in that entire game, is if they went no huddle. They couldn't just line up, drop a play, and then move downfield. It was just impossible. They couldn't run. Obviously, Tom Brady didn't have a lot of time to throw, but when he did, he wasn't accurate. That interception was kind of like a head-scratching play, like a
the red zone
throw. Yeah. And then also for the Cowboys, though, I don't know why. I'm a Tony Pollard stan. I think this guy's awesome. And I hate that he's the number 2 running back when I think he's clearly better than Ezekiel Elliott right now.
What the hell is this Stan thing?
Stan. It's Eminem.
Can we just say fan?
Sure.
So you're a Tony Pollard stan. So you're gonna
come on, 8 Mile. Come on, 8 Mile. You're wearing the beanie. You don't. No, like
I know,
Stan?
but the stan thing is like, yes, you love Tony Pollard so much you're gonna put your girlfriend in the trunk of your car and then drive it over a cliff.
Well, let's not get literal now.
I just don't get these kids and their slang now.
But
Stan.
Nevertheless, Derek, I think that Tony Pollard was awesome in that game. And who was that guy on the offensive line that Aikman kept talking about during that one? Oh, and there's one more thing too that really caught my ear, but just real quick, I want to get the name of this offensive lineman if I could find him. He was also no, he was the rookie left tackle, I think, or right tackle.
He's filling in for Tyron Smith this season.
Yes. Oh, come on, Tyler Smith.
Tyler Smith.
Yeah, like was really impressed by him. Just overall, they were dominant. But something that also caught my ear, and I didn't see it, but it was right at the beginning of the second half with the Manning cast. And then Manning just comes out and says, as he's like, carrying the football, putting it above his head. And Eli's just looking. Anyway, he's got the ball above his head though, and he's like, I don't understand this myth about second half adjustments, halftime adjustments. I don't think in my 18-year career I ever made a halftime adjustment. And he's like, you go to the bathroom, eat a couple of orange slices, then your coach says, all right, let's go play. Good luck. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Makes you think.
I don't know if I'm buying that from Peyton. Because it could just be that Tony Dungy wasn't telling him what to do offensively in the second half. He was too busy about the Cats at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Right.
But
worrying about the litter boxes.
But yeah, every quarterback in the second half is looking over the game. Back then it wasn't the tablets; it was just looking at photos, and then you just make adjustments on that. So I don't think I'm really buying what Peyton Manning's saying there.
Interesting. I don't know. Other guys were agreeing with him, though, like former players. I saw Jeff Swartz, Andrew Hawkins, all those guys.
Are you telling me that no one's ever made adjustments in the second half?
Tiny ones, maybe, but I don't know. I think for the most part, they stick with their game plan. It's kind of like what Shanahan said with the Seahawks game. He said
yes and no.
I mean, like, it's just a quick message like, hey, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. The plays are there. Just make sure just make sure you get away. And maybe he's not talking about like the play calls of the game. I don't know, man. Like I do think teams change their philosophy up a little bit.
Oh yeah, cool. I mean, like the Patriots do a drive the drive.
Maybe it's just like halftime. Maybe during the second half they actually start to make the adjustments. I don't know.
Of course they do.
Yeah,
that's
in the
why
middle of the quarter.
That's why I think it's a little ridiculous for Peyton to downplay that.
Interesting.
Maybe just him as a guy, like he was the leader of that offense.
Right.
No one could tell him otherwise. So I think in his mind, he was like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
And so with the Buccaneers losing comes the speculation of Tom Brady. And he said, I always say this, when you thank the media after your season's over, that's your way of saying, like, be nice to me. Like, I remember Nick Saban losing the championship game to Clemson when it was at Levi's a couple years ago, and he thanked every individual person that covered Alabama football.
Right.
When normally he has no time for them during the regular season. And that's coaches and players' way of telling the media, be nice to me. But also I think it was Tom Brady's way of saying, I'm out of here. And poor Byron Leftwich, I don't know if he's going to get fired, but he should have taken that Jaguars job when he had the opportunity. Remember last year? He had the job and he turned it down because he didn't want to be paired with...
fired.
What's up?
I thought he already got let go, did he not?
Not officially yet.
Oh, okay.
But there are rumors that he's going to get fired.
But
and
they're
maybe
expected.
yes, and maybe Todd Bowles in time, now that he's got to deal with all of the ramifications of Tom Brady not being there. Yeah, I think Tom Brady's time as a Buccaneer is over, and now we'll see what happens with him as far as playing football as we prepare for him maybe to join the Raiders. We talked about the rap report, I guess we could call it, with the Titans and the Niners and the Raiders all being interested in him. And yeah, you and I have been talking for a while now. I do think it's going to be Tom Brady. That's part of the Raiders equation as far as quarterback next season. I do think they'll look at a rookie as well. I don't know about in the first round, but we'll see who's available. Which leads to the article we talked about, written by
Hondo Carpenter.
You know this guy's name very well, Hondo Carpenter. And very interesting read. Steven didn't like the bullet points, but I did.
It's just a weird format.
Very, very weird format.
At least on the phone.
Yeah. And it details the way that the organization viewed Derek Carr since the John Gruden administration, and how Mark Davis apparently has never been a real fan of Derek Carr. But John Gruden always was, and he said he would always take care of Derek, and that's why he trusted him. And I guess a little bit of how Josh McDaniels kind of sold him on the idea of it would be him and Dave Ziegler and the three of them all working together, and he helped with the Devontae Adams trade. But in the end, that Josh McDaniels just didn't like what he was seeing from Derek, and that Derek kind of went into a shell and put up a wall against him and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels would chastise him, and the meeting rooms and call him out. And a lot of players liked where the team was going as far as their aggressiveness and their attitude and the way that Josh was coaching the team. How they kept referencing in the article how they played against Kansas City and
Right.
how in the end that game didn't go their way, but that is kind of the formula for what they want to do going forward. And they also talked about the Houston win they had this season when they won against the Texans and they won by 18 points, where Josh McDaniels kind of focused on more of the negatives of that game. And Derek Carr wasn't digging that, where he wants to focus on the positivity of it as well.
Right.
So it seems that Derek just didn't like Josh McDaniels' coaching style. And in the end, the last few games of the season just kind of didn't listen to what he had to say. And that's why Josh made this move.
You know, what I found interesting too was, I found myself having sympathy for Carr after
Yes.
that Colts game, but it turns out that the players didn't exactly feel that way. Turns out some players were slightly offended with him calling out the team.
Yep.
And did not like that press conference where he's just kind of waving back and forth and, on the verge of tears. And I guess like some players didn't like that, which took me by surprise. I thought players would kind of be on his side, but I don't know, maybe there was a real disconnect there. And yeah, that's exactly how it worked out though. It seemed like at the beginning of the season, as you heard from David Carr and the way that he was talking on NFL Network, like it seems like they really liked McDaniels, and they really thought that this was going to be somewhere where they could thrive. But yeah, turns out that he just wasn't able to take the film critique and, getting called out on certain situations where he didn't feel like it was his fault. So there's the disconnect there that you just can't have when you're in an NFL team. You need to all be in sync.
Yeah, which I find interesting that he didn't like being called out in the meetings, where I heard in 2017, it's kind of a similar situation where the Raiders had a very disappointing season with going 6-10, and they fired Musgrave and brought in Todd Downing. And there were reports and instances where Derek Carr was being called out by Jack Del Rio in team meetings. And apparently Mark Davis did not like that whatsoever.
Right.
So it's hard to believe in the standpoint that Mark Davis never had Derek Carr's back. I think he did. I mean, obviously he was the spokesperson of the team for all the bullshit that went on a season ago. But I guess it maybe was just the fact that he didn't believe in him as far as being a quarterback.
Right.
So where Josh McDaniels wants a strong leader in a quarterback is what he's looking for in Tom Brady, where he's not getting that in Derek Carr. And I didn't find anything alarming or shocking in this article, but I just found it fascinating of just how the interaction went between Derek Carr, Dave Ziegler, and Josh McDaniels. And it seems to me that the team itself is behind Josh McDaniels, where you just brought up, Steven, that a lot of them thought that Derek Carr's play was not very good, and that him kind of, talking to the media and being like, oh, work so hard and, just the things we do at night just to sleep.
Right.
And, I think that his act was kind of wearing thin on the rest of the players.
Yeah. I didn't go into the article. Like you said, it wasn't really shocking. I'd say 50% was true for me. Like I did not, I was putting 2 and 2 together when you kind of realize like him and McDaniels didn't get along toward the end of the season. Obviously what happened in the final 2 weeks, but you hear what players have said that have previously played for McDaniels, very stern. He's also apparently very full of himself in terms of being a play caller and being a coach. I think he says that he could take the top high school recruit right now and make him a Super Bowl winner. Like somebody, he was rumored to have said that. I don't know if that's true. But players were doing like their tell-alls when McDaniels got hired. It was really weird. So a lot of stuff was being flown around, but so you had to figure like they just couldn't see eye to eye. So the thing with McDaniels and Carr wasn't a surprise. It was more with the players and Carr. I thought they had his back no matter what. I looked at that differently. You know what I mean? Like I thought that the players absolutely had his back. I thought so when the reaction was happening to when Carr got benched, but maybe, I mean, we always focus so much on the stars. The only guys that we personally played was Waller, Jacobs, Adams, and well, that was really it, right?
Waller, yeah. Well, it goes back to us talking about how Waller kind of was smiling and kind of not broken up by the situation.
Right. Didn't seem too much. And like, who knows, man, what the other players on this team are like. Not everyone gets interviewed. Not everyone can express what they really think. We heard from the stars, but we didn't hear from the other guys.
Yeah.
So I really do wonder, or that kind of left me that when I was reading that, I was like, oh, I didn't know. I knew the disconnect with McDaniels. Didn't know the disconnect with the players.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Derek's perspective as far as what, happens in the next couple weeks here and what he decides to divulge to the media and everybody. I saw him speak to a church, I think over the weekend or something, where he says he's not, sad or anything, which I find hard to believe. But it goes back to, how Derek's perceived, and he never really fit the Raider mentality of being like, the hard ass or the, like the Ken Stabler type. Like he's, a Christian guy and has a family and whatnot. And you and I kind of make fun of his style of talking, like, oh man. But it also was apparent with how things would get to him. Like in the past few years, he's kind of clapped back a little bit. Like I go back to that training camp audio of him telling Paul Gutierrez, "Why don't you tone that down a little bit?" And then him lashing out on Stephen A. Smith and everything. So it's no surprise to me that he doesn't take criticism very well, and I'm sure that's hard for him when it comes from a coach as well.
Yeah, well, I don't even think it's like just criticism, though. Like it's criticism where he feels like he's the only one getting it. Like that's how it came across to me. Like I think he can handle criticism and like guys getting on him for his play, but from the article, it made it sound like he felt that McDaniels was blaming it on him and him only, and not really on a lot of the team. At least him being the primary guy.
Well, but that's also the thing is that when you're the quarterback of a team, that kind of is the case. And not always. I mean, and also to say that everything that went wrong with the Raiders this season fell on Derek Carr's shoulders is also inaccurate. The defense did not play very well this season. A lot of guys did not play very well this season, with the exception of Josh McDaniels, or Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams having all pro seasons, Max Crosby as well. But he didn't grasp McDaniels' offense enough for him to feel comfortable with him going forward. And I will say, yes, the most surprising thing was the locker room and how they viewed Derek. And I know this is not related, but I go back also to that 2017 season where that season changed when they went to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happened in the locker room about the national anthem stays between the players and the coaches. But something happened where Derek Carr said something and everybody else wasn't feeling it. And everything changed after that. And I'm not saying guys don't like playing with Derek Carr. Obviously, Devontae Adams came to play with Derek Carr. But that part, when reading that, made me think, like, do guys think that Derek's a little, I don't know, cheesy? I don't know.
I mean, you've seen the reports out there that some of these opposing defensive coordinators say that he's kind of torquey. Like that's why they don't fear him. I don't know. He doesn't strike you as like, I don't know. That's not, I don't want to say like, he doesn't strike you as a player that has that like dog in him, but
that's a difference is that him and, like it's hard to compare Tom Brady to Derek Carr, but that is the difference where Tom Brady will do anything it takes to win. And I don't know if Derek Carr has that same mentality, and that's what Josh McDaniels is looking for.
Yep. It was totally testing him, but
And to be completely fair, in reading it, I felt kind of sorry for Derek, because while you have to be a leader when you are the quarterback of the team, just relating it to myself, I don't play quarterback, But just, when they're talking about how it's tough to take criticism from people, I feel that same way too sometimes. So I don't know. It was a hard read. It was a very interesting read, but also it was just like you wonder if, while Derek was very liked by his teammates and obviously did a fantastic job in the leadership for what happened with Henry Ruggs and John Gruden a season ago, when it came to taking accountability for his play, it seemed like the rest of the guys didn't think that he was willing to do that.
Yeah. Was it really hard to read though? I mean, what I thought it was very. I needed something like I told you afterwards. Need an investigative report, someone to do some journalism on what happened within the team and what went on. And it turns out that it kind of validated what I think what really people thought. And so I don't know. And ultimately, I'm sorry, but the guy's making $40 million a year next year if he gets traded to whichever team. So he's fine.
No, believe me, I know he's fine, but no one wants to go out like this.
No.
Yes, it was a hard read in the sense that I just didn't like reading that about Derek, to be completely honest. I enjoyed watching him for the last 9 seasons, and while at times it was tough to watch, I thought he was a good guy. Not the best at times, not the worst at times, to quote that book. But I just thought that, I don't know. It was just, the whole thing is just hard in the sense of how this is how it's ending. Is that Derek feels a certain way about the team now. His brother is lashing out now. I just thought it could have been a better send off than this.
Yeah, I guess.
You're more in the mindset that you want success already. You're tired of the bullshit with the Raiders, which I understand.
Well, I'm more in the mindset of like, I don't know. I was kind of tough on that contract before the season. And I was saying this is a make or break year. Like they're telling you in the contract. And it turns out that he has his worst season. And it's just, I don't know. Maybe it should have been a more respectful type of goodbye, but it's really hard when this team is kind of looking to really win now. I don't know. I don't know. But the fact that he like separated himself from the team, it kind of made me think like, okay, like we looked at Russell Wilson and that whole thing and all that, but just reports that you kind of isolated yourself.
It wasn't Russell Wilson, but that was the hard part. I was reading it and I was just like, this is kind of getting in that way.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I got a light for Christmas and I haven't been able to hang it up, so I just kind of have it sit here while we're doing the podcast so I get more light on my face.
Uh-huh.
But it's falling, so hang on here. Bear with me here.
This is great.
All right, that's better. Before we end this thing, Steven, just real quick, we got 4 great games coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
Any in particular you're excited about the most?
Ooh. You know what? Funnily enough, I mean, of course, Niners and Cowboys is number 1. Like that's ultimately it. But it's that other NFC game. I want to see what the Eagles look like coming off a bye. They haven't been the most consistent team. I mean, if the Giants play the way that they did, where they're playing more or less mistake-free football, and Daniel Jones is playing the way that he's playing, I think that the Eagles-Giants could be a really good game. I'm looking forward to those ones. The ones in the AFC, Bills-Bengals is, I mean, a fantastic. Oh, I'm looking forward to all of them, but if I had to rank them, yeah, it'd probably be Niners-Eagles, Bills-Bengals, then Giants-Eagles, and then Chiefs and Jags.
You mean, sorry, Niners Cowboys is number 1?
Yeah, who did I have as number? What did I say?
You said Niners Eagles.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, Niners Cowboys, then Bills Bengals, then Eagles Giants.
Yeah,
then Jags Chiefs.
I agree. And that last game of the season with the Eagles and Giants, where the Giants were playing their second and third stringers, and the Eagles were playing their starters, and they kind of struggled against them, makes me wonder how this is going to go.
It's going to be an interesting one, man.
It's going to be interesting, and we'll get all to it on Saturday. Indeed. Anything else you want to say before we end this thing, Steven?
You all right?
You said,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
My light situation had me sidetracked.
Ah, okay. It's all good.
Yeah, it is all good. All right. It's late. I'm tired. Let's end this thing. Steven, say what you always say.
It's just our man. What?